Hello, this is Uncle Bob and Ronnie again.
Right.
Where's your mask?
My mask.
Yeah.
Well, some fella needed to rob the bank, so I loaned it to him. And,
Well, don't you know we're trying to get a show started here?
well,
You keep showing your face.
well.
If you don't end up in jail, we'll at least end up off the air or off the whatever we call this.
Well, I've stood it for 80-some years. They ought to be able to stand it for at least an hour.
There's always opening for a good-looking old man, but an old codger like you better wear the mask. It's been about the greatest things
Well,
happened to you.
that's true. That's even without drinking any of that Corona beer from Mexico.
Do you have you noticed you're getting a lot more women kind of flirting with you since you went to wearing that mask?
Yeah, I've even had them look at me.
I'd say that's been a definite improvement in your
Right.
love life.
Well, that's right, of course. You know, any at all is an improvement of my love life at my age.
Well, yeah, I reckon that might get you for assault with a dead weapon or something. You can't tell.
That right. But
You know, I was driving down the interstate Monday and I saw absolutely the goofiest sign I've ever seen. You know them there flashing signs they put up to tell you about traffic, or they'll have a little joke on it and warning you not to run over somebody or something.
right.
Well, I was driving along and I looked up and it said, be sure to stay 6 feet apart. They think the man's going to drive down the road 70 miles an hour staying 6 feet apart. They blame fools. That guy behind me, if he's wanting to stay 6 feet of me, he might be end up buying my truck.
Yeah, at least the back end part of it.
You know, I just thought about what they were saying. I understand they were just kind of warning, if you were out socializing to not get too close to people, but you don't put that on the interstate where people driving 70 miles an hour.
Well, I wouldn't think so, but you know that 6 feet apart hadn't done anything for our love life.
Well, if you're from Texas or Arkansas, it might.
Well, I don't know. Don't know about that.
Well, anyway, what else is going on, Bob? Any news
Well, I
you
don't
want to
know,
comment
you
on?
know, I'm getting ready to go to Georgia. I'm gonna pick up a load of watermelons. I may get a few peaches. I will get some tomatoes, possibly some fresh corn. And then
How about some cantaloupes?
Well, I may get some cantaloupe, depending on the price. Cantaloupes go bad so quick. That's one reason I.
You think peaches don't?
Well, you don't get that many peaches. I just don't get that many. But I may get some cantaloupe. They'll probably be pretty good this year.
Well, when are you going to get back? I need a watermelon or two. I ain't found one this year that wasn't so hard you had to grind it up before you could eat.
I've looked at some of those in the store, and I would not have loaded them up if that was all I had to choose from. I would have come back empty.
I think they finally got the watermelons like they've got tomatoes. Hey, over there at one time in Granger County, they had
They had good tomatoes.
They
at one
had,
time.
they was juicy and sweet, and every now and then one of them would be bruised up or something. And then they developed a variety over there that it just looks so pretty in the store, and it'll keep good. And if you lose your hammer, you can drive nails with them.
Right. Well, that's true. Watermelons have progressed in that direction too. When I was a young man, my dad raised some of the best watermelons in Guilford County, North Carolina, and he raised I can't think of the name right now, but he raised a watermelon that had such a thin rind on it. When we carried them to town and we put them in a trailer behind the car, we had to put straw underneath them and straw between the layers of the watermelons, or they would burst open. That's how thin the rind is. Now you can throw one, drop it off the truck, and it probably bounce.
Yeah, you don't want to drop it on your toe either.
Well, somebody wanted to know I learned to pick out good watermelons. And
Best way is cut 'em.
well, no, without cutting them. But back in my hometown, one of our pastimes during September, October, was to steal watermelons out of your neighbor's patch.
What in the world was that?
This was down in.
No, I didn't say where. I said what.
we were.
I don't know.
All of us that stole watermelons had watermelons at home. You know, we could have eaten out of our patch, but it was always something to brag about that you got into somebody's watermelon patch and probably stole their seed watermelon. That's what you were looking for. And we walked everywhere we went when I was a young man. Might have had a bicycle, but probably the tires were flat. So we'd walk 2 to 3 miles to the neighbor's watermelon patch, and we'd search around and find the biggest and the best watermelon we could find. And also we made sure it was a ripe watermelon, because nobody was going to walk 2 to 3 miles to get a watermelon.
To steal a watermelon.
And load it back home, carry it back home 2 to 3 miles, it'd be a 25 or 30 pound watermelon, carry it back home 2 to 3 miles and cut it and it'd be green. So I developed a knack of how to determine whether or not a watermelon was ripe or not ripe, and also a little bit about the flavor of it without even cutting it up.
Well, how do you do that?
Well, I don't know. It's just something you develop, you know, from walking.
I thought I listened to all that, going to learn how to pick out a watermelon, and you don't even know how to do it.
Yeah, I don't know how to do it either, but I have a sense of whether a watermelon's going to be good or not.
You're one of them lay hands on it people.
Right.
Huh?
Well, I do lay hands on it, you know.
You know how to tell whether
I
it ate?
had a buddy. He lives in Myrtle Beach now, and he runs another car lot. And he had a car lot in High Point, North Carolina. And he was the slickest, I'm going to probably say crookedest, car salesman you would ever want to meet.
Well, tell me about him.
He would sell automobiles, and they'd give a guarantee on them. And when they broke down, he'd bring them in and pray over them that they would heal themselves. This is no lie. And he told the people, says, I'm praying over it, says, I think it'll be all right in a day or two. And he would pray over these automobiles, and that's the honest truth.
Well, did it work?
No.
Hello.
But he has I looked up on the internet the other day, and he has a car lot down.
Got his own church now, I guess, ain't he?
Down in Myrtle Beach, you know, South Carolina.
Yeah, and has he got his own church?
Well, he did do some preaching.
He got Brother
do
loves traveling cars and church. Cars
he did
and
do
salvation.
some preaching at one time. Yeah.
Well, what do you think about all this here rewriting history going on, Bob?
Well, I think it reminds me of what the Taliban has done in Afghanistan.
Yeah, they went in there and tore down some
Monuments.
Yeah.
And statues that had been there for 1,000 years or better. Ours only been there for 200 or 300 years, you know. But it's still, you learn from history. If you don't know what happened in the past, you're more likely to make the same mistake in the future.
You know, I've been hearing and been told and listened to people talk about how divisive Donald Trump is.
How righteous?
How divisive.
Oh, divisive, yeah.
And what gets me is the other party is the party of divisions. They divide you according to color and ethnicity and place of origin and religion and color of your skin and whether you deplorable out in the heartland or you live in town and you're supposed to be a whole lot more acceptable there. If that's not the party of division, I don't think that the word means anything.
Well, also, I don't know if you heard his speech, and I guess it was in, I don't know, it's a prayer breakfast. I listened to a couple of them. but he hit on some themes in that speech that reverberate through this country. He needs to expand on them, that this country is not in for all the change that they're trying to bring about, that this country does not hate itself, that we feel like we still are the cream of the crop, and that we have morals and ideals and goals that surpass anybody else. We also stress the theme that people are proud of their country, that they love America. And those are the themes he needs to expand on, because all these people that are coming up with this other stuff, I don't know if you noticed it or not, but in Wisconsin, the polls had him down 16 points, I believe, or 14. Well, they had another one that showed him up 16 points.
So, I must buy my own poster, I guess. I don't think I'll run for anything. People got more sense than vote for me.
But we need to expand on these themes. I grew up during the time when Kate Smith, I don't know whether y'all are familiar with Kate Smith, who sang God Bless America.
There's another one she sung too.
I thought Kate Smith had to be the prettiest woman in the world. She was way overweight, and she was not a very pretty woman, but when she sang God Bless America, it brought tears to my eyes, even as a young boy, as a teenager on up to a grown man, because I was always in love, and I still am, with our country. And I say there's nothing, my dad said there's nothing wrong with this world, it's just the people that's in it. And I think that's true here. We have people here who are very, very divisive. They want you to think of everything in the relationship to black or white, you know. They want you to think of everything in relationship to male or female, or those that would be whatever they would be.
Yeah, they divide you that way too. I forgot that.
Yeah.
All 97 genders.
Right. So, you know, the sad part about it is this attitude that they're developing is not being counteracted with our young people in school or on television. You know, it gets added to. They get taught more how to be divisive.
Well, the good thing is television is just about a thing of the past.
Right, that's very true. But I think Donald Trump, the reason they call him divisive is he just doesn't believe in what they believe, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And he is divisive there. He's very positive. He's always kind of, I think, told you what he felt about something, whether it was right or wrong. And that's one thing I appreciate, because I have stuck my foot in my mouth many a time, but it's my damn foot and it's my mouth. And I have the right to the opinions that I want to have.
Now, we'll just have to put up a statue to you whenever we're gone.
Somebody will definitely tear that one down.
Well, you know, I noticed a picture of one of the Antifa people had these little white spots all over him. Pigeons didn't have any statues to defile, so they had to...
I think the pigeons ought to file a class action suit against removing these statues.
Bathroom discrimination or
Right.
something.
Is that right? But
Boy, if they ever take the fire hydrants out, the dogs will be in trouble, won't they?
well, I reckon they would be, you know. And also, I expect the fire department might be in trouble if they were to have a fire. You know, we probably have the only ladder fire truck in the state, and not have a building over 3 stories high.
I think they got a deal on it or something.
Well, they don't even have a place big enough to park it.
I know,
They
that's
park
part
it
of it.
outside. But
They don't have one of them that the guy has to drive on the back end, do they?
Right. No, it's not.
Okay, that's good.
No, it's not quite that long, but it's longer than they can get in any of their buildings. And
You know, they got a $250,000 matching grant applied for to do work out at the Money Hole Park.
Yeah, I know that. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good, I guess you might as well if they're gonna throw it away anywhere.
But it's somebody else's money that they're applying. So it's tax money, and they have to match it.
Oh yeah.
So, you know.
That's kind of like the Camel Hump Bridge.
Yeah.
They got such a good deal on that bridge, but we had to match the funds that went into it. Were you there when they cut the ribbon?
No.
Well, I was, and old Larry Cooper.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Larry Cooper put a Wild Bob and Ronnie sticker on the back of Cliff Jennings' Cadillac.
Yeah, I remember that.
And when he drove off, everybody got a picture of that going across the bridge with our sticker on it.
Well, good thing we ain't into that no more. I'm glad I moved away from that place.
Well, you know, this country, it's suffering some real hard losses on the economic front right now. And we need to get everybody back to work. There's about 1,400,000 people applied for unemployment this week.
Well, when you give somebody $600 plus their regular salary to stay at home, it's hard to get them talked into going back to work.
Well, I would think so. That's very true.
I tried to get unemployed myself, but I couldn't figure out how. They said I quit too early. You'd think just 'cause ain't that age discrimination? I'm 70, you're 84, ain't you?
I'm 85.
85. Well, we ought to be able to get something out of this deal.
Well, but you know, the same thing applies to this stimulus grant. They don't have any money to give anybody. You know, we are giving money that our grandchildren are going to have to pay back, or somebody's going to have to pay back. And most of the people that got that stimulus money, I doubt if 1 out of 10 of them could not have done without it.
Well, I guess I ought to keep my mouth shut, but I don't want hungry children, don't get me wrong, but we're feeding them. We're feeding them we're going to have a problem there in a minute. You're going to unplug us. Well, I don't know.
There we go.
I think I caught one.
There we go. We
Okay.
got it worked out.
We have we have kids that are hungry because mommy and daddy is not caring about feeding them. And so now they're so dependent on the school lunch that they're going to mail it to them this summer. Get your crackers in the mail.
Right. That's on Friday.
I don't know when they're going to feed them, and I'm not, just like I said, I'm not for starving the young'uns, but if mommy and daddy can't manage them more than that, they ought to thought a little bit before they started this family, and they certainly ought to do better at taking care of it.
Well, I'm going to tell you a story that happened real close here. This couple had 4 children. She was in good enough health to work, and so was he. And they got over $1,000 a month in food stamps. And we had to feed our young'uns because they sold the food stamps and bought dope. That's what they did. They bought dope, they bought pills with the food stamp money, and we had to help feed the children. And they've lived a couple of places, and everybody they lived beside had to help feed those children. They finally lost the children.
That's good.
Social service, they need it too, really.
Well, my daddy said that if you didn't work, you wasn't supposed to eat. Now, I don't mean that applies to the young'uns, but it sure applies to mommy and daddy. He told me about a time back, this had been probably about 1920 or something. This new couple moved into the neighborhood, man and a woman, and the people all got together and helped them get set up housekeeping and helped them plow and plant them a cornfield and got it all looking good, and the corn come up, and every day him and her would go down to the river and fish, and the corn was growing up, getting weeds in it. The corn couldn't keep up with the weeds, so somebody wrote him a note and left it on the door and told him to work his cornfield. And then they hid and watched him. He come out the next morning, he looked at it, and he read it, and he throwed it down and went a-fishing. Well, that night they knocked on the door. Didn't have any electricity, of course. He come to the door, and they grabbed him and took him outside, and they had some switches. Now, I don't know whether this would be politically correct or not, but they was kind of giving him a thrashing, and the woman come out and was a-fussing and a-jumping on him for it, and they give her a few licks too. The next morning, the guy, first thing he done at daylight is went and got the weeds out of his cornfield. I don't know that some of this vigilante justice wasn't more effective than social counseling and whatnot.
Well, that's true. Not only vigilante grocery, but justice. But a lot of times, the peer pressure from people who do right is so strong that the people who are going to do wrong will move away, or they'll get with the program like they should.
Yeah.
So if you put good people and bad people together, if the good people stay true to their cause, they'll eventually convert the bad ones or run them off one the other. And I believe that peer pressure will work.
Well, you've heard the story about you can put up a hog lot, but you can't get any hogs to go in it. But if you put out a feed trough, they'll start coming to feed, and you can put up one fence, and they'll still come. And you put up two fences, and they'll still come. And you put up three fences, and they'll still come. And then the next time you put up the last fence with a gate, and they'll still go. And then you close the gate. Well, they've been trained to quit looking. I'm talking about wild hogs. They quit looking for feed on their own because they're dependent on somebody supplying them. Just the same reason you see all these signs in these national parks that not feed the bear. If you feed the bear, we got problems. Well, if you feed people too lazy to work, you got problems too.
Well, that's true. They learn quicker really than the bears do. And I had a house over in Cashiers Valley, North Carolina, which is just right past Lake Toxaway and past Sapphire Valley, and on the way down to Walhalla, South Carolina. You ever heard of Walhalla, South Carolina?
How you spell it?
Huh?
How you spell it?
It's just like it says.
Starts with a W?
Wahhollo, the Walhalla. It's like a...
Yeah, but that didn't sound right, but yeah, I've heard of it.
Okay, all right. It's down...
I guess I didn't call it that.
Right, it's down the mountains from Lake Toxaway, which is right as you come into Cashiers Valley on Highway 64, and you got Toxaway Falls down below it. Well, back in the 20s, the fellow that owned Lake Toxaway and the property around it, the dam burst and washed the town of Walhalla away. It was just straight down the mountain. That the dam burst and washed the town away. Well, he got sued and got broke and everything, and he moved off to New York City. He was enterprising and energetic, and he developed a fortune again in New York City. And when I came into that area, had some property, his son had come back to Lake Toxaway. And
Yeah, we didn't build another dam.
yeah, he did. Well, the lake had already been rebuilt, okay. But he bought all that property back again that his dad had. And you ought to go through there now. It's massive homes and retirement homes all around Lake Toxaway. And you can't go play on the falls anymore like I used to. We could go and slide up and down the part of the falls. Didn't want to slide all the way because it was about half a mile down those falls, you know. But we were able to play in the falls.
Yeah, I guess your daddy wondered what's been going to them young'uns, didn't he?
Probably. But you know, a lot of things have changed since I had property up here in the mountains. Tennessee is most notorious for it, and that is you can't pick up anything around on the ground on public land for what they won't put you in jail. If you go out here to Norris Lake and start picking up rocks around the lake, that's a crime. So you can't do like you used to. I used to go find sapphires. I'd find all kind of gems in those streams up there, and but now you can't even.
I thought you were talking about Kingfisher's wife.
Talking about what?
Kingfisher's wife.
Yeah. Yeah, true. But so many things have changed during my 85 years, and it's somewhat even hard for me to enumerate how many changes I've seen in my lifetime, but a lot of them.
Well, is it better or worse?
For the number of people we have, I'm going to say, I'll stand to be corrected, but I'm going to say it's better.
Well, would you rather live now or then?
I think I'm living in a very exciting time. You know, when I was growing up, we had a tin stove and a fireplace. And we finally got wealthy enough to have an Ashley wood heater and a fireplace. And if I hadn't had a couple of dogs to sleep with me at night, I probably would have froze to death in that house during the winter, because I believe the winters were a little bit colder back then than they are now.
It's global warming, but you know, we had dogs here that was too proud to do something like that. We had to sleep the pig or something around here. Some dogs just won't do that. You know, I understand that some viruses want to infect certain people. Antifa's so bad that they can go out and burn buildings and that virus won't fool with them.
Really?
Yeah. You just don't want to go to any political rallies, you get sick.
Right. Yeah, well, like I say, things have changed so much as far as housing and the conveniences you have.
Do you have electricity?
Not until I was 14 years old. And we had naturally, but we did have some modern conveniences. We had a refrigerator that run off of kerosene. Yeah, we had a refrigerator that run off of kerosene. We had one of these old Kickstart washing machines that the tub went round and around, and the ringer that Grandma got caught in run all the time.
How'd you get her unwound? How'd you get her unwound?
That's right. So we had the refrigerator that run off kerosene. I used to walk to the store, which was a little over a mile when I was very, very young. And for a nickel, I could get a gallon of kerosene, and that would run that refrigerator for a week almost.
A week?
A week.
Where could I buy one of them? You have to talk into that.
I ain't saying nothing.
You can put it to you.
But I ain't saying nothing.
Well, not much.
Yeah, yeah, it was one that just had just a very little flame that heated that
I think they used ammonia.
heated that ammonia up, and it would keep it wouldn't do no hard freezing of ice, but it would keep your stuff about as cool as if you carried it down to the spring
Yeah, I
house
was going to say.
and put it in the spring house.
That put a lot of spring houses out of business, I
Right.
guess.
But I never could find one of them lizards that would live in that refrigerator.
Well, I've never seen one that run on kerosene. I know they had them around here a little bit. The rich people had them, but I'm surprised you could run it a week on a gallon.
Well, I'm guessing. I'm pretty sure because they didn't send me to the store for about a week, So maybe they brought some more in, but I'd go about once a week and get a gallon of kerosene.
Well, it's
But kerosene had a lot more in it back then.
had more octane, didn't
It
it?
had to. I'll tell you, I used to have to pack the hay down around the pole when we stacked hay. That was my job to walk around that pole, pack that hay in.
Yeah.
Well, my older brothers and some hired help, they would go and bring wagon loads of hay in and throw it up there, and I'd tromp it in. While they were gone, I'd finish tromping it in.
Did you get to cap the stack?
Pardon?
Did you get to cap the stack?
No, but what happened, I was playing around there at the barn one day, and I stuck a pitchfork through my foot. It went in between the leaders of my toe and come out.
Ooh.
Well, I pulled it out, and I went up there and sat in the shade at the little pack house we had. And my brothers come and says, "How come you ain't stomping that hay in?" I said, "Well, I stuck a pitchfork through my foot." So they went and got a bucket of kerosene,
Yeah.
stuck my foot in there.
Yep.
They tromped that load in. They went back, got another load. And when they come back, says, "All right," said, "you going to sit up there all day, or you going to come down here and stomp this hay?"
Yeah.
Well, I got up and I went down there and I went back to stomping hay. And I never had any infection. I never had any problems at all from that old nasty pitchfork going through my foot.
Yeah, I know. I've seen people doctor with it, and I also people used to do it. I'm gonna have to get a haircut.
Me too.
Yep. We ought to trade. You're getting more mileage out of your haircuts than I am mine.
Yeah, good.
People used to take a little nip of kerosene for the croup.
Yeah. And they used to make a little poultice to go around your neck for the croup too,
Yeah.
with a little kerosene in it.
My grandmother, and this is before my time, I never met her. She died about 5 years before I was born, but my mother told me about it. My grandmother was out in the field doing something, working, and she had to go over this fence, and whenever she hopped down on the other side, she stuck a board through her, had a board there with a nail in it. She took the nail through her foot,
Right.
all the way through her foot, and she couldn't get it out by herself, and she hooked that board in the fence and fell backwards,
Right.
pulled the board out, and went on home.
Right.
I don't know if she used any kerosene or not, but that didn't kill her.
Right. Yeah, well, we used practically all home treatment for any illness we had. And I told somebody the only time we ever called a doctor was to pronounce somebody dead. And that's about the same thing with a veterinarian. Every time we ever called a vet, whatever they come to work on died. So,
Yeah, it costs extra for a vet to kill it. They used to didn't have to have a vet license. Sure, they just had to decide they could work on animals. And I could tell a few stories about that, but I guess maybe I better not. I guess a feller could even get sued by some of the relatives or something, them old guys. Well, Bob, I think we've solved enough of that problem. What else can you think of that you'd
Well,
want to
I know
mention?
you're talking about veterinarians not having to have a license. All of my mother's children, all my brothers and sisters, were delivered by midwives. And the only time the doctor come back by was to fill out the birth certificate. And when he filled mine out, I didn't know it till I was about 40-some years old. They had spelled my name. He probably was drunk when he come by. They spelled my name Bobbie, which is to me that's the feminine spelling of Bobby, instead of spelling it Bobby. And I had it changed when I was about 40 years old. I went for some reason to get my birth certificate, and I found out they had spelled my name different than what I thought it was. So, but all of my mother's children, all 8 of them, were delivered by midwives.
My mother, my mother said they aggravated her. All her brothers and sisters aggravated her because she was delivered by a midwife, and the midwife charged them $1, and they aggravated her all her life about it when they thought about it that she just cost $1. Of course, $1 back then would buy a whole lot of stuff. It'd buy a new young'un.
Yeah, well, see, I'm old enough to remember. We think we're in good shape with $1.75 a gallon, or $1.72, I believe. Down
What
the
was?
street right now. When
What are you talking about?
gasoline,
$1.75.
$1.70.
Oh, you're talking about now.
Yeah, right now,
Okay.
$1.75. But back when I first started driving, I could get 5 gallons of gas. I could get my windshield washed, my oil checked, air put in my tire if I needed it for $1.
Yeah, and water in your radiator.
Yeah, water in the radiator if I needed it, yeah.
You can't get water at a gas station anymore. You have to pay for the air.
Right.
Put it in yourself. Clean your own windshield if you can find anything to clean it with. But, you know, really, gas is about as cheap proportion as it used to be back then. I've seen it for 19 cents a gallon, but usually it was about 23 or 24.
Right. I bought it.
No, in fact, I saw it 9 cents a gallon one time. We had a gas war going on.
Did
That didn't last but half a day or something at that price.
I remember it being 15 cents a gallon.
Did you ever have to go pump it up in a jug and let it
Yeah.
run in?
Yeah, I used to beg Mr. Job, who ran the Gulf station, to let me pump it up in there, and he'd let me pump it up in there if they wanted a gallon, 2 gallons, whatever they wanted. You know, I could pump it up there, and then stick the hose in there and turn it on, and they'd get what they'd see what they were getting. They knew they
Did it
were
have
getting-
them there little balls went around and around in the thing?
No, that one didn't. No.
You know, after they got, I remember the SO pumps used to, they had a little shot glass, a half moon thing up there and had 3 balls in it. And the gas would go through there and he'd jiggle around to show you it was a going in.
Right.
And you start the gas running and they'd take a fit till you turn the hose off.
Right. Well, we had some very time period dated stores there in the community I was reared in. And one of them, this Gulf station that J.T. Job run. J.T. was quite a character. He and his boy built these little micro midget racers, you know, and they had a shop behind the store where they built them.
They didn't run any shine, did they?
Not there, but next to it was the grinding mill, and you could tell by the smell whether or not they were running something for the moonshine,
Yeah.
because they come got the corn cracked and the barley and everything, you know, that they were going to make their shine out of. But no, they dealt in these little micro midget racers, and the garage in back. Incidentally, J.T. Job must have been kin to me because he was hard of hearing, and he couldn't hear very good. In fact, he he had had one of his ears cut off because he'd had a cancer or a growth or something on it. So he had one of his ears cut off on the exterior. But I'd get back in that garage where they had those little micro midget racers. And when JT got ready to close up, he closed up about 5, 6 o'clock. And he'd yell back there, Bobby Andrews says, are you back there in them cars? I'd be back there just going, on, and playing like I was driving them little micro midgets. And I'd be quiet a little bit, and he'd yell again, and then he'd go ahead and close up, and I'd stay back there and play in them little cars for an hour or two until it got close to dark, and I had to get home. So,
Did you lock the door when you left?
Well, yeah, but I had a way of sliding under a big sliding glass, a big sliding door that was made out of wood. I could lay down and slide under that thing, so it didn't make no difference whether it was locked or closed. I could get in and out anyhow.
Had a feller told me one time, he said, there's a guy down here, another town, he was, he'd had some problems with people breaking in his shop. He had a little filling station there, and he'd had a problem with people breaking in. And this fella's telling me about it. He got him to help him hang some lights or something in there, and he said, I got to looking. He said there was a wall there, a divider wall, that didn't go all the way up to the ceiling. And the way them guys had been getting in, they was coming in the back and going up over that wall, jumping up there and getting hold of that wall. And then they'd raise herself up and come on down. He said, I looked up there, and he had a whole line of them triple hooks, big fish hooks,
Right.
nailed to the top of that wall.
Right.
He said, I asked him about it, and he said, I gad the next time somebody breaks in here, I'll find them hanging there the next morning. Don't know how it worked out. But a feller can get into some stuff sometimes he don't expect when he decides to live a life of crime.
Well, I never really broke in any place, I don't reckon, in my life.
You're busy breaking out, wasn't you?
Yeah, I wanted to get out. But there was a building in the community that I lived in that sat at the intersection of McLeansville Road and Bethel Church Road. And there was a little old rough siding building. The boards on it were about that thick. And it had, I don't remember what kind of roof it had on. I think it had a shingle roof, a cedar shingle roof on it. It had a big old heavy door, and it had no floor in it. It never had a floor. It was a dirt floor. And a lot of times on the way to school, if it was raining something, we'd stop in there to get out of the rain, or if it was cold or something, we'd stop in there to get warm, you know. The building was completely abandoned. I didn't know it until I moved up here and I got to reading a little bit of information that Andrew Jackson's first law office sat right in that location of McLeansville Road and Bethel Church Road. And I am positive as I can be that that was Andrew Jackson's original law office that he first opened up when he went into practice.
I didn't know you was that old, Bob.
Well, Andrew was out for lunch when I was there.
Well, I was going to say,
I didn't know Andrew Jackson, but I knew one of his granddaughters really, really well. I was probably in my 30s, and she probably was in her 80s, you know. And I used to take some of the older people over at the nursing home out for lunch right much. I had an office right up the street, and I'd call up and tell them, get me up a carload of people, I'm going to take them out for lunch. And I'd take them out and buy them lunch, and she was one of the ones that went with me a lot of times to eat.
do you know that John Tyler, President John Tyler, has still got some grandchildren living?
Grandchildren? Well, he was in the 1840s.
I know.
Yeah, he was in the 1840s.
Well,
Well, didn't John Tyler beat Martin Van Buren?
it was when Harrison, William Henry, Tippecanoe, and Tyler too.
Yeah, but didn't Martin Van Buren take over for Harrison when he died?
No, Tyler was the vice president. You remember Tippecanoe and Tyler
Yeah,
too?
I do that.
Well,
But
Tippecanoe was Harrison. He died because he stayed out in the rain, talked, and got pneumonia and died, and he'd only been in office about 30 days. Tyler took over. He wasn't that old, and then he didn't have this last family till he was about your age, I guess.
oh no.
And then that, I know it don't sound reasonable, but he's still got at least one grandchild still living. Let me see.
How about that?
Well, he was living just very recently, and may have
Right.
died over the weekend or something. I don't know.
Well, he could have caught the virus.
Could have.
Yeah.
Let me see if I'm right. I won't swear to it till I got to Google it, you know. Um, okay, this is dated February the 20th, 2017. President John Tyler, born in 1790,
Okay.
still has 2 living grandsons. That was in 2017. I don't know what the status is now.
Okay. Look up and see who Martin Van Buren took over for. He didn't serve but one term.
I think he was in between. He did Van Buren go in after Andy Jackson. Well, wait a minute, I'll find out. I got to have a Google.
Okay. Get us to Google.
Van Buren, Martin Van Buren, 8th president. Yeah, he was in there before. Okay. If he was the 8th president and Harrison was the 9th president, and Tyler would have been the 10th president, so he was in there before that. Let's see what it tells us here. Okay, I'm right. It was Andy Jackson, Martin Van Buren, William Henry Harrison, John Tyler.
Okay.
And then it was Polk from Tennessee,
Right, okay. Well,
and Taylor.
I was somewhere right around there. Yeah.
I remember Tyler, Polk, Taylor. I had to learn them,
Right.
had to memorize them presidents
Right.
and civics. And when I was a freshman in high school back in 1912
Right.
or 13.
Well, they tore poor old Teddy, trying to tear old poor Teddy Roosevelt statue down.
Yeah. Old Ted ain't a faring too good. Oh, they didn't tear down Andy Jackson, though.
They tried to.
I know, but they didn't get by with it.
Well, Trump, I think, got the right idea. He said he's going to have anybody arrested that they faced them or tore them down. And he said there would not be any autonomous zones in Washington, D.C., where there's no police allowed.
Well, I think we ought to start this one here.
I think so, too, because I have some reservations about the local law enforcement in this county as well as this city. And I think they operate more as a Gestapo rather than as a police force.
Well, I guess we just have to get them defunded.
Well, they ought to make enough on their own.
That's one way to look at it, I reckon. Well, Bobby T, Uncle Bob, I think maybe we've done enough talking today. What do you think?
Well, I expect we did more talking than people did listening. So
Well, I think we've already made new enemies.
that's okay.
How about it? Uncle Elmer, cousin Elmer, we about ready to go?
Are we ready? I'm ready, yeah.
Tell 'em bye, Bob.
Okay, see you, Ronnie.